Morning.
There he is. Right, he's right next to a plane that's revving up, but I can hear you, Mark. That's
And
okay.
there we go. We got planes flying in all morning.
All
We're here
right.
at Cottonwood Airport for our annual pancake breakfast in our EAA hangar, if I can get a picture in the back.
Nice.
And I'll kind of walk down. We got planes lined up. We got planes landing right now. I thought maybe we'd walk down and kind of see some of the planes that have come in.
Did you try going sideways with your camera just so we can maybe see a little bit more of what you're doing? There we go. And that's what I'm talking about, Mark.
All right, so we're back in the EAA hangar. So let me do a spin around. Let's see. We got some planes coming in all day. Yeah, I can't even figure out how to work cameras.
Perfect job there. Now, can people come down and like buy a plane ride this morning, or is that some other time?
So right now we don't sell plane rides, but we're actually going to do May 18th. We're going to have what we call a Young Eagles rides with our basically giving free rides to kids. We'll have our local guys from the airport out flying and bringing in, trying to give kids an experience that they haven't had before and maybe get them interested in a little bit more science and technology and really get them out and see what it's about. Anybody can learn to fly. It's not that outrageous. And, you know, people think that this is something that's only available to people who are rich, but it's not. We can get everybody out and give them a great experience. Now, I will tell you,
I'm sorry to interrupt, but how much does it cost to have a kid? I have two grandsons, 8 and 6. Is there an age limit? One, and one, what does it cost? 2, what does it cost?
So we don't have any, the pilots out here volunteer when we do this May 18th Young Eagles rides. It's for kids, I want to say 8 and up. And there's no cost. It's something that we volunteer to go to try to give kids a experience that they haven't had before. And we'll be doing it from 10 to 2 on May 18th. We can just have them show up, but we actually have registration. If you go to EAA22.org, you can follow the links to register in advance. Now, we do ask the parent or legal guardian to sign a waiver, typical insurance stuff, but all our pilots are background checked and insured to go up flying. But it's something we like to give back and give kids an experience that they haven't had before.
Nice. I put the link to the what your guys' website in the chat here. It's on the screen right now. And a lot of times I'll go to organizations' websites to show people what they look like, but I'd rather see what you're doing out there today because this is awesome. I'm glad got good signal out there at Cottonwood this morning.
So literally, as we're talking, planes are flying in. This is our annual pancake breakfast. We do this the first Saturday of May every single year. It's been going on since 1974. It's been at different locations, but it's been at Cottonwood for at least the last dozen years. This is part of the EAA, the Experimental Aircraft Association. This is local chapter 22, and it's everything from aviation enthusiasts, pilots like myself, aircraft builders. There's a big community of people who build their own aircrafts, and it's just a way for us to get together. This is kind of our fundraiser, or a big fundraiser for the year to get everything going. But on a beautiful morning like this, we all like to do this and come out and have a beautiful day out flying too. So it kind of brings things together.
And you had mentioned, even if someone isn't into flying, they can come out and help you guys out with stuff. You got stuff that volunteers can do all the time.
Yes, we have activities going on. Actually, with our chapter, we have 2 different build projects that we're building 2 different planes on Mondays and Thursday nights. Every single night out here at Cottonwood Airport. We actually do a lot of training with student pilots. We offer twice a year a ground school course to learn to be a private pilot. And on top of that, we're going to be giving away our 2 flight scholarships this year. We're going to be awarding 2 different students. I'll tell you, one's 18 and one's 16. Complete flight scholarship to go from never flying an airplane to being a private pilot. So we've been able to do that the last 3 years, and we've been able to train upwards of a dozen different pilots, but we've been able to give away, I think, 5 different scholarships in the last 3 years.
That's amazing. And before I forget, I want to make sure to thank Bruce Jacobson for connecting us together here, Mark, today. Bruce, a big part of what you're doing out there at Cottonwood Airport.
Oh, 100%.
He's a busy guy, spreading the word everywhere he goes. He came down
Yes,
to
he
our
does.
Rockford Linked lunch a few weeks ago and brought his big poster about this event and everything else. So kudos, Bruce. You're doing an awesome job promoting what's going on out there. And the breakfast is this morning. You got till 11 o'clock to get out there today. So if you're watching us live, great. If you're watching us on the rebroadcast later, sorry you missed it, but that's okay. Go on out there, plug into the website, plug into the Facebook group page, and see if there's something that you want to plug into and volunteer and help out with. You mentioned, I know that, flying can be, there's expenses involved, obviously, but it's not as crazy as some people might think. Can you kind of fill us in with some of the details on costs for getting trained, taking lessons, and maybe eventually somebody buying your own Piper or whatever kind of plane?
So there's all sorts of different options. There's a flight school. There's multiple flight schools around the area. There's one in Janesville, one at Poplar Grove Airport. We do more private, working one-on-one with flight instructors, and working with personal people who either have their own airplane or able to borrow a different airplane. But to give a rough idea, anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 to get a private pilot. There's opportunities with flying clubs in the area at Rockford Airport, down in Mount Morris Airport, that have different opportunities to join, that they do have aircraft that you can join the club. Once you get your license, you can go out and fly the airplanes. And there's just lots of opportunity. My biggest thing is people see the fences around airports and they think that they're not welcoming. Well, they really are welcoming to come on out and see what's going on. And that's what part of this pancake breakfast is about, to let people know what's going on out here. And I got to tell you, it's like a big park out here, and you get to kind of wander around and meet the people and find out how other people got involved. But we're actually seeing a lineup right now to come in for our private pilot. Here's one of the guys who's walking in right now, who's one of our flight instructors, who's been helping out with a lot of kids and adults learning how to fly. So a lot of different opportunities.
That's sweet. That's sweet. Well, you've got an awesome crew out there helping you out, a bunch of volunteers to make this all work this morning. I imagine the cooks have been busy at it since about 4 or 5 this morning.
Yeah, you can see I kind of turned around and I got our lines, not 4 or 5. We got out here at about 5:36 to get everything starting prepared. And we were a little bit busy at the beginning, but now everything's coming together. So we really feel like we've been doing this a long time and we got it kind of down. But every first Saturday of May, we'll be out here, and we'll be out here until 11 o'clock today.
Awesome. Good deal. Dan's chiming in saying his dad belonged to the flying club out there at Cottonwood years ago, and he used to come out there many times, taking off from Cottonwood.
It's a great little place, right across from Ulmer High School, and really welcoming. That's what we want everybody to know.
Well, before we let you go, what about yourself personally, Mark? What got you involved in flying in the first place? What's your little backstory on? Were you a kid? Were you a little kid and dad do something, or an uncle, or a friend? How'd you get plugged in?
Literally, I had no attachment to flying. Nobody in the family flew. Something I always dreamed about doing. And when I got my license about 10 years ago, I just decided it was something I wanted to do, made some reaching out, and somebody directed me to this guy, and I met him up and got my license. I'm actually a pharmacist. I have no background in aviation. But if you put the time and effort, it's not hard to do. It's open to everybody, and it's a neat community. You meet a lot of people from a lot of different walks of life. So we have everything from truck drivers and electricians to doctors out here who fly out at this, and it's just a welcoming community, and everybody is welcome to come on out. I guess that's the big answer.
That's awesome. That's awesome. It's still on the bucket list for me to go up in one of those smaller planes. So I'll have to bug you someday to say, hey, let me know when you got an open seat, because I'd love to go for around this.
There's always an open seat, Greg. You can come on out today and we'll get you up in the air.
Oh, man.
Can I pose as a really big 10-year-old and go on the 18th?
You know, it might happen. I'm never going to say no. There's guys who always, I'll tell you, I just walked past this yellow plane, give you an idea. The other passion these guys have is keep some of these older airplanes still flying. There are planes from the 40s and 50s that they keep flying out here and keep it maintained. I'm walking up to one other thing, give one other plug out here. We got the guys from the Northwest Illinois Air Show, which will be
September 21st at the Freeport, Alberta Airport.
Did you get all that?
Freeport, Alberta Airport. So that's just down the road.
Just down the road off 20.
Highway 20, about 35 minutes from here.
Nice.
So it's a one-day air show. We got a lot of good acts coming in. It's been getting bigger every year. It's the 4th year, and going to be a lot of things to see, a lot of stuff for the kids to do, and also lots of food trucks for people that like to eat.
And that's September 21st. September
21st, 2024 in Freeport.
Right up
There you go.
Yeah, now you can see it.
I'll trust you, Mark, to get me that info so I can post it on our website.
I will do that.
That's a great plug right there for something coming up in September, and we'd love to have them on the show too and plug that. So
on the show.
Okay, cool.
You've been excellent. Is there anything that we didn't ask you about that you wanted to make sure we talked about today? I mean, shout out to the volunteers, obviously, who got up early and made this all happen this morning. And then a couple of weeks ago, you had a bunch out there cleaning up the grounds, picking up sticks, all that wind to begin the season.
Yes, sir. Just wanted to thank you for putting us on this morning. Really, we want people to really think that this is doable. It's friendly. It's welcoming. Sometimes they see the gates and they think that nobody's allowed in the airport. We wanted to let everybody know that this is a community that we want people to come out and experience what's out here.
Awesome.
Well, I have one real quick question before you go. How many runways do you have?
So here at Cottonwood, we just have one runway moving north and south. And it's perfect for small airplanes. Are we going to land any of the jets here? They're not coming in here. But the small planes, all of us love coming into this kind of park-like atmosphere.
Yeah, it's a beautiful spot. I can only imagine the kids going to high school at Auburn, seeing that throughout their Auburn high school career. You got to have a few that just walk over and say, "I got to be a part of this. What can I do?" Exactly.
We've had kids get involved 100%. And what's kind of interesting, when you're coming into the runway, you fly right over the stadium. So we get to see what's going on every day in that stadium too when we come right over.
Nice. Well, I'm sure we forgot to ask you something, but let's try to connect again maybe before the Freeport show and give them a plug and look forward to promoting next year's pancake breakfast all over again for you, Mark.
Thank you so much. I just have to leave.
Good job, buddy. Yep, you're all good.
Thank you.
Awesome job, Mark. How about that, Tom?
That was really cool. I really want. I've been up in an airplane. I've been up in a twin engine in 6th grade, or twin engine. What do they call it? Piper, whatever it was.
I don't know what they're called.
Like those.
Yeah.
And I've been in several airplanes flying Seattle and wherever. But
I've never been in a small. I've never been in a small 2-seater like that or three seater like that. So
this was like
that's
a 4
on the
or 5
list.
seater. Yeah, this was a school thing. We were all in 6th grade. I don't know how we ended up doing it, but there were like 4 of us in there. The pilot and then 3 kids. That was cool.
Well, thanks to Mark for joining us again. Rockford's chapter is chapter 22. I want you to think about that. There are hundreds of EAA chapters across the country. There are hundreds of them.
Mm-hmm.
And Rockford is number 22.
22.
Think about this. Of all the cities in America that have EAA chapters, that have planes and runways and small airports like Cottonwood, and the 22nd chapter awarded in the country was right here in Rockford. If you ever had any doubts about how aeroplanes and aeronautics is important to the hub, to the forest city of Rockford and where we are here in Northern Illinois, that should tell you it right there. So if you don't make it out there today, try to get out there some other time with the other events that they have throughout the year and plug in to all things EAA chapter 22 in Rockford at the Cottonwood Airport. They are in the 815. They have an 815 not-for-profit foundation, but I don't know a lot of their history. Mark and Jamie Cooney are coming on with us now. Good morning to you, Coonies.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks for joining us today on the show. And I know you've got a guest that you've invited to come along with you too. We're going to bring him on in just a second, but first we want to learn a little bit about you folks. Did you both grow up here in the 815? Tell us about your backstory a little bit.
Yeah, I'm Jamie. I'm Ryan's mom. I grew up in Pecatonica and lived there till I was about 19 years old, and then moved to the big metropolis of Rockford to experience the city life, and then started attending some softball games out at Forest Hills, and that's where I met Mark.
Okay.
And I grew up in Michigan and moved over here for work about 35 years ago, and just started working, lived up in the Roscoe-Rockton area when I first moved in, and then I met Jamie at softball games when she was pregnant with Ryan.
Mm-hmm. I was pregnant.
Okay, cool. So you guys have basically been around this area for a long time. Yep. And started this foundation honoring your late son Ryan. And I guess do we want to get into this backstory we'll bring Brian in a little bit. Let's start at the beginning. Tell us about Ryan and who he was and a little bit about his backstory.
Okay. Well, Ryan, he grew up in Rockton, Illinois, and attended the Rockton Grade School, Whitman Post, Stephen Mack, and then, of course, Hononegah. He was a 3-sport athlete, very active in the community. As far as personality, I'm his mom, so he was the best kid in the world. But he was enduring and loving and caring and extremely compassionate. He went to Southwest Minnesota on a football scholarship for about a half a year.
Mustangs? Is that the Mustangs?
Yep.
You know why I know that?
Why?
When my son played with a kid who played football and got a scholarship at Southwest Minnesota.
Okay. Who was that?
Jeff Polsine.
Oh, that doesn't sound familiar.
Jeff, I'm guessing is probably a couple years behind Ryan. I'm guessing. Okay. I'm not sure.
I'm pretty sure Ryan spent more time at the casino than he did at anyplace else. Right? Why he ended up coming home.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and he got redshirted, and he had a lot of extra time, and he wasn't used to that.
No. Jeff was a crazy awesome linebacker, so I think he played all 4 years out there.
Okay.
But, so Ryan comes home, and where do we go from there?
Yeah, so he went to Rock Valley and went up to Platteville and tried that, and just decided school wasn't for him, and enlisted into the Marines. And actually, it'll be 10 years ago this April that he went out to California to be a Marine.
Okay. So yeah, he definitely was older than Jeff and Kenny. So he goes out to California, does the boot camp thing.
Yeah.
They plug him into where they think he's going to be fulfilled and useful. The Marine thing, I'm assuming, I don't know this, is something like the Army thing, right? The boot camp and the assessment tests and saying, okay, here's 2 or 3 possible career tracks for you. Did they let them choose, or do they just put them in they determine if you're a square or circle and put you in the right hole?
That's exactly it. Yeah, you go up to MEPS in Milwaukee and take a bunch of tests, and they tell you this is what you're going to do once you get through boot camp, and this is where you'll be stationed and go to school. And originally he was going to end up in Missouri and do logistics, but he got the opportunity to go in early. We didn't really know a lot about it, so he accepted going in early, and he ended up at 29 Palms, and he was did the Amtrackers. He became a crew chief on an Amtracker.
Okay.
So that's what they take the guys from the boat to the land in. Everybody's in the container, and then it's basically a can that floats to shore.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. When you said Amtrak, I'm thinking
train.
No.
Right. But those are the transports that we see probably from those like World War II videos back in the day.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Storming the beaches.
Amphibious assault vehicle. I was at AAV. Hey, and you notice our lights blinking.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought you had an idea, Mark.
Yeah,
That was,
I was raising, instead of raising my hand, I had the light going off.
Yeah, there you go.
Would that be,
You had several ideas in the last 30 seconds.
Would that be a Good Morning Ryan sign? Is that what?
Yes, probably Ryan saying, "Hey, I'm still here." So
yeah, it's him reminding me Brian is
Cool.
waiting in the wings, and we gotta hear from Brian too. So I'm gonna bring Brian on. Brian King, you mentioned was a friend of Ryan's back in the day. Good morning, Brian.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for joining us this morning. Having known Ryan for how many years?
Since we were probably about 10 years old. So
okay.
Quite some
Let's go ahead and give Brian the floor here a little bit. Tell us a little bit about your memories of Ryan and growing up with Ryan in Stephen Mack Middle School and all the stuff you guys did.
Yeah, so originally from the Rockton area as well. So grew up with Ryan going to Stephen Mack and Woodman Post, and then onto Hononegah. Played every sport with Ryan, throughout school, and then travel sports as well. We met in 3rd grade playing football for the Rockton Lions back in the day, and Cooney was our coach. So from early stage, Ryan and I just became very close and pretty much inseparable. We were always together, whether it was summer break, during the school year, practices, weekends, whatever it was, we were kind of always together. Miss Jamie always jokes it was always Brian and Ryan. It was, kind of tandem people that were always together. So then after high school, we kind of went our separate ways. I went to University of Wisconsin-Madison for a couple of years as Ryan went to the Marine Corps route. And then I came to downtown Chicago, where I still live today. But Ryan and I still stayed close, throughout this whole time. And whenever we had the chance to get together, we'd always meet up, and we'd still go on vacations together. Grew up going on vacations with the Coonies. Brian grew up going on vacations with my family as well, going to football camps, just kind of all over the board. So I've known the Coonies for a very, very long time.
And I think this is really important. I'm glad we're having this conversation the way that we're having this conversation. I hope you guys see the value in this too, mainly because what Ryan went through, it appears to me, was a very normal childhood that all of us can relate to.
Yep,
absolutely.
All of us can relate to, and to have him go through what he went through and end up how he ended up. It's important to see that mental health is complicated. It's very complicated. And we're experiencing that in Rockford this week. We're hearing, the stories of the tragedies that happened here this week in our own community again, of what I think we can all pretty much agree boils down to mental health awareness, mental health of it. What are people thinking? What are people doing? How are people being helped? How are they not being helped? And when you decided to start this foundation, I'm assuming, Jamie, were you the catalyst of that, or was there something else that kind of said, let's start this foundation?
Actually, I was not. Not. And I was like, Mark, if you want to do this, you can go right ahead and do it. I'm going to sit in the background and watch. So that's where we bring Brian and another young man, Ryan Sadler, into the picture. They reached out to Mark in December of 2021 and asked if he would be okay if they did a golf outing to memorialize Ryan. And he's like, yeah, of course. How do we do this? Okay. And then they figured out, you know what, we need to set up a foundation to funnel the money through it so everybody knows it's legit and where the money's going. And I'll let you guys take it from there. So I was not the catalyst, but I'm like the number one supporter.
It was a great supporter.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's
Ryan Sadler and BK came and said, hey, let's do this. What do you think? What do we do? And I said, okay, well, we're going to need some help. And we got a bunch of people together, and about 4 or 5 other guys. And it was amazing, the support we got from the community. It was amazing. It was like, you would love all that support for the vets as they're going through what they're going through when they're going through it. and they don't realize it's there because, you know, there's people that go to Swedes and Rosecrans and all those other places to get help. But if, you know, sometimes you look at somebody and you say, man, that guy's crazy, but you don't ask him if he needs help.
Mm-hmm.
Don't ask him if there's anything I can do for you. But that's how it started, and those are what we were thinking and how we can get help to local people. And BK's been great, and so is Rhino.
Well, I think the number one question most people ask when they come across a foundation like yours is, what does the money do? I'm going to donate. I'm going to drop a few bucks into this donate now tab here on your website, and it's going to go somewhere. Where do you see the greatest impact for the money donated to RDM Foundation?
BK, you want to talk about the dogs?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first year, just take a history lesson quick. So when we first started in 2022, our first initial donation just went to Rockton American Legion and Mission 22. And then last year, with last year's donations, we want to expand to a broader reach outside of those two organizations. So we found a organization that trains service dogs in Lyons, Illinois, still the local general area around Rockford. So they're an organization that train and sponsor service dogs for ex-military people, so for all veterans. So they help train the veteran themselves as well as the dog, just to live your everyday life. And those are their companions. So they go through the training program together, opposed to some other organizations where they train the dog and then give the dog to a veteran. The veteran doesn't know how to adapt or how to kind of work with that dog, because every dog and every veteran is unique and has various reasons why they need a service animal. So they work with the veteran and the dog themselves to kind of figure out what's best for their situation. So that's our biggest organization that we're giving to now, is sponsoring these service dogs for more service members to receive animals.
Okay. So you see yourself as an organization to support other organizations, which I think is great.
Yeah. So really focusing just on organizations that help mental health and just suicide awareness.
Okay.
What our goal is eventually, like I always say, we're kind of in the infant toddler stages of the foundation. As the board tries to figure out where we really want to have the biggest impact, about a year ago, we decided we really want to stay local and help local veterans. And maybe eventually, grow into that and get bigger and spread our wings. But right now, we're looking for other organizations to support, but then set up our website and start reaching out to other people. Well, if you need help, we're going to have information on our website. We kind of teamed up with it's called Veterans Bridge Home out of North Carolina. They're very, very open into helping us setting something up like that. In this area, we just haven't gotten there yet. One, because all the board members and volunteers still work full time. And as you can see, Ryan, was 28 when we lost him. He'd be 31 now. And all his friends that are involved in this are young, getting married, starting their families. So they're very busy. So we're trying to make it so it's a balance for everybody, and it doesn't become another job for them. We want it to come from the heart and not burden people with this, because we try to look at it as what would Ryan want? Ryan would want balance. Ryan would want people to be totally happy.
Simple.
While helping other people. Yeah, simple. Thank you.
Yeah. Every time the subject comes up of the suicide statistics of those who leave the military, and it's just heartbreaking. It's so sad to see how so many young people, with good intentions and trying to serve and find themselves and find the career track, and for all manner of different reasons, end up taking their own lives and finding themselves in some kind of hopeless place. Thankfully, organizations like yours, supporting other organizations, are out there trying to make a difference and to make sure that these young people know there is purpose for them after the military. Even if they don't find their niche in the military, they can still find it out of the military when they're done serving. I know when we talked earlier, Mark, that this year, you said this year's golf outing is already sold out. Is that correct?
That is correct. We've got 160 golfers lined up already. We have 40 volunteers that'll be helping us out. We're looking for donations and baskets if you'd like to donate, things that we could, raffle off for people. Last year, I think we had close to 45 baskets that we raffled off. So it's really a good time. We do dinner at the Legion. If you would like to go to the dinner, maybe not the golf outing, I think, Brian, we still have some tickets available for that. Some space available where we can just pay for the dinner and come enjoy the company.
So there's still space for that? Maybe?
Yeah, there's still space for people to come to dinner. Yes, sir.
Yep.
All right. I'm going to put the link to the website here in the chat so people can easily find where that is. And then see if I can also copy the Facebook page here and put that in the chat as well, so people can find your Facebook page really, really easily. So this event sold out. That's pretty awesome. I mean, that's gotta warm your heart to know that you put the word out there and it's already sold out here. And it's not until June.
Yeah, we've never. I think the first year we went public and went out and started finding golfers, but the second and third year, everybody's come back. We have basically the same people coming back every year. We get a couple different people, but we've never, the last 2 years, we haven't opened it to the public because we were just full.
Yeah. Well, you know what some clubs have done? They've gone to using 2 courses or doing 2 days.
No.
It's as complicated as it already is. So we started out with 72 golfers and went to 144 the first year without even thinking twice. So
I want to thank Cassie over at Mactown Construction. She's the one that connected me with you guys to connect and have you on the podcast here today. So those who do want to still contribute to this can still donate. There's a donate button on the website. If you have something that you want to donate to the silent auction type site items, that's available too. Is there anything else that we're not asking you that you want to make sure we talk about today? Any details or other events after the golf outing? Anything that I might be missing that you want to make sure we throw out there?
I mean, we're looking to do other events. You mentioned one the other day, something that we can go look at, whether it's a bowling thing or the axe throwing thing like you talked about. We're going to try to continue to do things like that. But like Jimmy said, we're just trying to figure it out right now and what we can do and not overburden people with trying to help us out. So,
yeah, we live in a very generous community. So it's really cool that Rockford does tend to rally around legitimate needs. So I think if you keep the discussion going, I think you'll see someone that'll want to organize a bowling fundraiser for you guys, or axe throwing out of big timber or something like that. That'll just get people out to support your cause.
That would be awesome.
What were you going to add, Brian? I think
Oh, no, you're good.
They're good. Yeah. All right. Well, I think that covers all of our bases today. So if someone does want to volunteer for you, you don't have any room for people to volunteer at this event this year?
At this time, we're already full. Yeah,
that's amazing.
Which is a good problem to have. But we always take lists for next year. If there's people that want to contribute in any way or help out, we can always keep your name and remember for next year and reach out at that time.
Waiting list for volunteers. Tom, this might be a first for us in 4 years that we've put the call out for volunteers.
Yeah.
And the organizers are saying, well, no, hold on. We're good.
No, yeah, we don't need any more. Just still send some money, though. Send some money. Money's always good because
the money in the baskets. Yeah, that'll work, right?
Yeah. Having the donation baskets is really our main source of income. That's where the golfers, that's where they put all their money towards the day of. And that's how we raise all the money that we do to be able to give to other organizations.
Yeah. And think of it this way too. Money, for somebody to send $20, $50, $100, it's a foot in the door. Now you're familiar with the organization. Now the next time it comes up, oh yeah, that was a great organization. I donated last year. I'm going to do more this year. It helps to raise awareness. So folks, if you've got a spare 20, a spare 50, whatever, please send it because it can always help. Unlike, You don't send any more golfers. We don't need them, but we do need money. So that's always a good
I do have one more thing. We are working. We're really just started in the last couple months working with Rosecrans and their new veterans thing that they're setting up. They're just getting people in position to do that. We're going to be working with them to be able to push people to them if they contact us and they need it. So we'll be able to have another opportunity for people to get some help.
Awesome. Good deal. Very good idea. All right. So before we let you go, we'd like to try a little trivia on you guys. And as I mentioned earlier in the chat, we've got a link to the website. We've got a link to the Facebook page. So give that a try. I'm going to try a new screen here to see if this works. I don't know if this is going to work for us or not. Yeah, I think this is going to work. Well, that's a nice screen. Hey, Tom.
All right, Mark and Jamie, you're going to have to put your heads together figuratively and literally. There we go.
That's it. I can be blocked out. You guys, I'll try to be your lifeline for your trivia. Maybe we'll see how it goes.
You are kind of square anyway, Greg.
I'll just stay right.
All right, up for grabs, folks. Is this wonderful trophy? This wonderful, or you can opt for door number 2, which is a little Snoopy something or other. I know, Mark and Jamie, when you first saw me on the screen, I'm pulling out my big giant stuffed animal, and I've got frogs, and I've got Snoopy and all that. I'm an odd individual. In a good way, though. In a good way. All right, here we go. You ready for trivia?
Yeah.
Sure.
I promise they won't be too difficult. All right, here we go. Question number 1. What is the symbol for Ever-Ready batteries? Once again, what is the symbol for Ever-Ready batteries?
Is it lightning?
Remember, Greg, you're locked out.
I know. I'm trying to think of a.
Brian, you can join too. Oh, and by the way, I shouldn't have to say it, but no Googling. No Googling.
No, yeah, B's Googling.
Is that the guy that put the battery on his shoulder?
I'm looking at his eyes like.
Put the battery on his shoulder. I knock it off my shoulder. I dare you. Go ahead. I dare you. Who was that?
I don't know.
No idea. Never heard of it.
It could have been, but that's not the answer. Once again, what is the symbol for Ever-Ready batteries?
We don't know.
Is it just a plus sign?
All right, Brian, no guess.
I don't know.
It is a cat. It's a cat running through the number 9.
Oh, yes. Yep.
And it's blue with a number 9 yellow and a black.
As soon as you say that, now I see it in my head.
All right.
All right, 2 more.
All right. Number 2, question number 2. What is the only dog whose smelling prowess is actually admissible in a court of law?
It's a German Shepherd.
German Shepherd, yeah.
Oh.
Any other guesses? I'll always ask if there are any other guesses just because
I'm thinking
that one's wrong.
I'm thinking it's got to be like a bloodhound.
A hound dog?
Bloodhound.
Bloodhound.
No.
Bloodhound's correct. Hound dog
Hound
works.
dog.
But we'll go all right. Here we go. Geography question. Sort of. In 1971, East Pakistan won its independence from Pakistan and became this country.
East Pakistan.
No Googling, Brian.
Yeah.
East Pakistan became what country?
Yep. 1971, East Pakistan won its independence from Pakistan and became this country.
Is there a country called Kumar?
No, but I went to school with a guy named Kumar. I did.
I was gonna say either Iraq or Afghanistan.
East.
I don't think they're that old.
Okay, I'm going to give you one hint, and it's going to be a very, very, very kind of a. Maybe Greg will get it because he's a music guy. The first part of this country.
You just said music. That's all I needed. I know now.
Okay.
I think I.
What are you thinking? Oh, I'm completely confused now. What do you think, Greg?
Kathmandu.
Israel.
No, Kathmandu. Okay, no. All right, it's a Todd Rundgren song, one of his absolute favorite. They play it at every arena. Think of the song, and that's the first part of this country.
No idea.
I want to bang on the drum all day. Bangladesh.
Oh.
Bangladesh.
Sorry, we didn't do very
All
good
right.
there.
Yeah.
No, you're fine. You're fine. You're fine. The problem with trivia, sometimes if you're not in that mindset, I do it 3 nights a week. Greg does it fairly often. If you're not in that mindset, it's really hard to come up with that stuff. Now, if we were to do this every single week, in about 3 or 4 weeks, if you were to play trivia or something like that, you'd be winning. You'd be scoring.
We know what he was
high
fishing
scores.
for. That's right. That's right. All right. Well, the as I mentioned earlier, the links are in the chat. If you want to go right to the RDM Foundation and check out all that they're doing, make a donation, and get on that waiting list for volunteers. Maybe get on the waiting list for next year's golf tournament. If you
That's right.
it's I don't know how you're going to expand on this, but I'm sure someone will help you do it. So you'll any final words?
We appreciate your time today too.
Yeah, thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thanks for having us.
Brian, Mark, Jamie, thanks for coming on, and all the best in your event. All right.
Pleasure to meet you.
Thank you.
There we go. Next week, we're going to be chatting with Cassie Bonnet from MacTown Construction. Cassie and her team at MacTown Construction will be hosting the INCROWD815 networking group at the end of this month. We'll get details from her next week on that. But today, our guest is known affectionately, I must say, as the Master of Disaster. She is not like Steve Urkel, ruining everything where she goes. She's Diane Logston of the Logston Group. Good morning, Diane.
Good morning, Greg. How are you?
Have you ever been compared to Steve Urkel?
No, I'm a little more Bazinga than Steve Urkel, I think.
You're a little more Bazinga than Steve Urkel. That's
Yeah.
right. You're a little more Sheldon-like.
Yes.
So for those who may have never met Diane Logston, tell us about yourself. Where'd you grow up? Where are you from? And how'd you find yourself in this crazy career that you're in?
I'm an 815 as well, but I'm a McHenry County 815 born and bred. And we decided to move over to Rockford in 2018 because our grandson was this direction. They're in Belvedere. So we were like, hey, we got to see that kid before he goes to university more often. And so we moved this way. And I'll tell you what, we love it over here. Just love it. The crazy world that I got into started with the 93 Lake Mississippi floods. And it didn't happen until after the floods. The next year, we did a driving trip down the Mississippi Valley. And it was just amazing to me. I mean, awesome damage from the floods of the Mississippi River. And so I came back and I called the Red Cross and I volunteered. I was like, I'm never going to be in a position again where I should be doing something to help people. And I'm not able to get engaged and do something to help. And so for 94 on, I've been doing the world of disaster.
Interesting. We're having some weird audio issues with your link at the moment, and I'm just going to double check and see what's going on here. If okay, so we're on live. Everything's good there. Maybe it was just me increasing your volume. All right. How does that sound now? You hear me okay?
I hear you just fine, yes.
Weird.
Try something.
Our video audio is not syncing up at the moment. So let's have you log back in, Diane, okay?
Okay. Is it better?
Go ahead and log off and log back in, and we'll see if we can't reconnect and make a better connection, because it was all solid until we launched, and then all of a sudden things got a little bit goofy and wonky, and I don't know what that might have been all about. So let's try this again. There we go.
Okay. Is that better?
That is much better.
Okay, good.
So the 93 Mississippi floods, you're driving around checking things out.
I was working at a mental health place doing their computer system database programming.
Okay.
Watching the news every night as everybody else was across the nation, because it was a nationwide story, because it flooded literally from the headwaters in Minnesota all the way to the Gulf over that summer. So it was newsworthy somewhere in the US all summer long. But the next year we did a driving trip down the Mississippi Valley, and there's somewhere in Illinois to either northern Missouri or southern Iowa, there's a ferry landing. And we got to that ferry landing a year after the flood, so the ferry still wasn't running. And we drove due east on the access road for 5 miles. We actually tracked it on the odometer. 5 miles. There was absolutely nothing, Greg. Everything was completely gone. 30, 40 feet up in the air. And then at the top of the old oak trees, which were about the only thing that was still there, the huge trunk, 200-year, 300-year-old oak trees, there was this burst of all of the tiny twigs, because the twigs and bark where the water was rushing had all been stripped off. But it was like a flower burst at the top of the tree with just dead twigs. It was really just an awesome sight, like in the true word of awesome.
Yeah.
And I just never wanted to be in a position again where I couldn't do something to help people either be better prepared or respond or recover more effectively from disasters when they happen.
For those that might not be old enough to remember that time back in '93, the helicopters and the videos that they were getting, especially on the Iowa side of the river, just was devastating. I mean, some of the smaller towns that were kind of gone. I mean, nearly gone. Water past the first floor of buildings in some of these small towns along the Iowa side of the river, and it was really, really something to behold. So that got you interested in disaster preparedness,
right?
And when somebody asks you about disaster preparedness, to me, that sounds like a textbook example of a Pandora's box, because you can go in so many different directions of disaster preparedness. Do you have a specific focus, or you try to be as general as possible when it comes to all potential disasters?
It really varies on who I'm talking to and what their focus is, because some groups have very specific hazard assessment that they have to do. And with individuals, really it comes down more to who are they? What's their family composed of? Who lives in their household? Who do they generally have in their car? Right? Because the two places I really feel like we need to be prepared are in our home and in the car when we're not at home, because you've got a workplace and you've got a school and you've got other spaces that you're in, but really there are other people around in those places, and there's a difference. But we're really responsible primarily for our home and for our car. So if we don't have the right things with us in our house and in our car for who we have in those spaces, then it doesn't matter what we know or what tools we've bought. I mean, there are lists of all kinds of things that people say that you should buy and have on hand, and I don't have any of them.
No.
I've got this thing that I call Diane's double duty directive. Diane's double duty directive is that every one of my tools should do more than one thing for me. Right?
That's a neat idea. Yeah. I feel that way too. It's not just a flashlight and a granola bar. You need a little bit more than that, don't you?
Actually, I carry a wine glass in my car, because if we get snow and I get stuck in my car in the winter, I need water. And how am I going to make water out of the bottle of water that's turned into an ice cube? I'm not. It's easier to melt snow than a big piece of ice. And so I'm going to scoop up snow with my wine glass, stick it over the candle that I keep in my car. The candle's keeping my car warm. The candle's also melting the water. The wine glass can also be used for wine if my husband and I have a weekend out of town. So double duty directive there again.
I mean, when it comes to basic survival skills, I mean, number one, pretty much besides keeping yourself from freezing if you're in the wintertime, is having a water source. I mean, having water. Absolutely.
We can go without food a lot longer than water.
I think that's something that a lot of people don't take into consideration. You really, most people can go many, many days and not really eat a morsel of food, but you'll dehydrate. What's the average adult span for dehydration? I mean,
I feel like some of us run mostly dehydrated every day. So, right. I mean, the medical concept of how long it might take is going to vary for people too, based on whether or not you're actually already running low on water anyway. Do we drink enough? I don't know. I don't know if we do it. There's the whole health side of the world. I don't get into the personal health side of it so much, but I know that in order to survive, I'm going to be able to need to take care of that for myself. And so that's one of the bigger things. But I'll tell you what, I don't have bottled water here at the house. They recommend that everybody should have a gallon of water per day for 3 days for each person that's inside of their household. But I don't have that. What I have instead is the knowledge and the skills to be able to get water. So my uncle still lives on the family farm, and he's got tractors and he's on a well. And so I know I can get water from my uncle's farm if I need to get water. If we're in really dire straits, I'm not looking for the city of Rockford. I live right in the city. I'm not looking for the city of Rockford to get my water turned back on necessarily. And if we're under boil orders, I'm I'm taking bladders out to the farm and I'm bringing them back in the back of my vehicle, and I'm using water from the farm that comes from the well at where I grew up. I grew up drinking that water anyway, so why not drink
it? And that's probably at the very top of the survival skills list is making sure you have a water source. Where you're going to get it, how you're going to store it, how you're going to transport it. I mean, probably my biggest fear in a catastrophic situation would be battered. That's what I have is, what would the plan be if all of us were not at home and everything just hit the fan at once and there's no more power anywhere? Now what?
Yeah. Really critical. We actually had a plan when my whole family lived here. Most of my family, my childhood family, most of them have moved away and live in other places, Florida, North Carolina. But so when everyone was still here, my brother was in Beloit and the rest of us were in Woodstock. And the plan was that my brother-in-law and his brother owned 2 auto mechanic shops, one in Woodstock and one in Harvard. And the plan was literally that if there was a tornado or something happened and we couldn't find each other, we couldn't get in touch with each other, we didn't know, who was impacted and who wasn't, that we would go to the shop in Woodstock and just tape a note to the front window. They didn't have to be open, just tape a note to the front window that says, this family from this household, we're okay, staying at the house, impacted but okay, where whatever you need to say, just whatever information you have that you can leave for the family. And then if we couldn't find each other, at least we would know when you go to check the window, oh, this person's already checked in, and this person's already checked in, and they're okay, and we've got space. If you guys aren't okay and you need to come to our house, whatever it was. And if we couldn't get to the one in Woodstock, or that one was impacted and gone, then we could go to the one in Harvard and leave the note there instead. So no matter which direction was impacted, we had a backup plan for it and one contact out of the area. So my sister in North Carolina was the one contact out of the area, because oftentimes you can get a phone call out or get a text message out, but you can't make multiple calls post-disaster. So get a message to one person outside of the area, and then my aunt in Arizona, my uncle in Arizona, my aunt in Texas, all the cousins, the kids who were living other places could call my sister in North Carolina who wasn't impacted. And she could share information with the rest of the family about who's okay, who's not okay, what's going on up here.
That's a good plan. Yeah. To have someone out of the area. Cause in most cases you would think, hopefully, any kind of disaster will be localized or regionalized and not nationwide. So
until we get into pandemics, and then that's all
pandemics and right. That kind of stuff. So I know your group, the Logsdon group, is something you're called upon to do what? When someone calls you and says, hey, we want you to come and ABC, what is it that you focus on when you talk to groups?
I call it the APT method, and it's really the same thing that emergency managers do anywhere across the world. It's assessing what the hazards and risks are, and then planning for them, and then testing that plan and training staff on it. So APT is the basics of what emergency managers do everywhere. My thing is that my company has been in place since 2006, and I've been doing it as a contractor for organizations who are small to mid-sized, who don't have one of me already on staff. So places that have emergency management staff, universities, hospital systems, county level in the state of Illinois, most counties have full-time emergency management staffs with multiple people. Those are not the folks that I like to work with as well, because they're already doing the good things that emergency management does, to be prepared, to be resilient, to be able to recover effectively when something occurs. So I like to work with the folks that don't have one of me. And then I also like to volunteer. So I volunteer with a couple of different organizations and have even served on the advisory board for the Cook County Department of Public Health for years, up until COVID struck. And then they stopped their advisory board meetings and their leadership changed. And I was obviously living out here at that point as well, so farther away from that area. But so giving back to the community as well. And too, that part of that giving back is doing preparedness talks. So we didn't talk about this before, but I actually spoke at one of the Rockford linked lunches out at the the
Machine
restaurant.
Head, yeah.
Yeah, so that kind of giving back and sharing information just with groups of people who need it, as well as, you know, the consulting side, the work that I do in my business is one thing, but really getting information in the hands of the folks who need it and can use it effectively is key. And the thing is that, you know, in my world, there are 4 phases to emergency management, to disasters. It's preparedness, mitigation, response, and recovery, and not in any order necessarily, because they can all be happening at the same time. And folks say, you know, preparedness, I think it's a FEMA number. Preparedness, for every dollar spent, we save $4 in response and recovery. And in mitigation, for every dollar spent, we save $7 in response and recovery. So we look at the billions of dollars that we're spending in disaster response and recovery now. If we just spent a little more in advance of it, we can keep from having those problems. We can keep our roof shingles on in higher winds. We can keep the earthquake from cracking foundations and moving things around. We can keep from having to raise properties after a disaster because structurally they're not sound anymore. And we can really make a difference in our economics and in our built environment and in our history, saving our history and our especially historic buildings and spaces. It really does a lot. So my focus has always been toward the preparedness side, even more than the mitigation side, because I really feel like knowledge, skills, and abilities save lives in disasters. And that's key for me. Like if we can keep people from dying in tornadoes, and I'm just still, it infuriates me. We know how to survive disasters, but we don't build for it and we don't do it. And that just drives me crazy, because if we had safer spaces in all of our structures and we paid attention to it, we might not have, I can't say we wouldn't, but we might not have fatalities anymore in those storms.
I think what you said there about the preparedness, every dollar you spend in preparedness saves you $4 in recovery. And I mean, that's at least should be some motivation for people to do something.
Right?
I mean,
one would hope.
One would hope, and that's I think the same argument can be made as far as, you know, life insurance and other preparedness things that people do just to prepare for end of life and such. As, you know, the one thing about life is, you know, death wins. we haven't we've only heard of one that survived that, and he's, you know, so now we've got this situation where a disaster could happen. We can kind of predict some things, not all things. We know we get, like in the Midwest, we know we get tornadoes every year. We want to be prepared for such things as tornadoes and strong thunderstorms. And yeah, I didn't know about straight line winds until about 20 years ago. That was a new thing to me when it hit Rockford 20-ish or so real years ago, with those straight line winds, tornado, gales, but in straight lines. What?
Yeah, we had a hickory tree, a full-sized hickory tree, come down on the house in one of those straight line wind storms about 20 years ago.
Oh, it was devastating. It was crazy. And
listen, that same storm system is a storm system that took EF5 tornadoes into Moore, Oklahoma. Moore, Oklahoma had 3 EF5 tornadoes in a like 8-year period, or 5 of them actually. I deployed out to 3 of them and worked the scene out there for 3 of them. We have tornadoes here, but we haven't seen a really big tornado in decades. And when you see an EF5, like the tornadoes that we had last year, almost 1 year ago, it was 1 year ago this week, I think Tuesday maybe would have been the 1-year anniversary of the tornadoes that hit by Eisenhower School.
Mm-hmm.
When those hit and I saw the damage from them, I could tell looking at it that it was tornadic damage. And I look for the same things that the Weather Service does, like the twisting of the trees, not just the falling over, right? That's right. The difference in the winds. And where the debris falls and how it falls tells them. And then they, of course, know how to estimate the wind speeds to get our F rating, our EF rating. But just looking at the damage, it was topping the trees. It was taking roof damage. It wasn't hitting the entire house. When I flew into Oklahoma for one of those EF5 tornadoes, when you look at an EF5 tornado damage path, there is nothing left on the ground. Mm-hmm. It literally just scrubs the ground down to brown dirt, regardless of what was built on it. It's incredible damage. And what worries me is that we're really kind of complacent, and we don't really take our tornado warnings seriously when they're put out. And we think that we're going to be able to see it and still get to our basement fast enough, but they're just right on top of you in no time. And this is why people are still dying. We're not paying enough attention, and we're not practicing effectively how to safely get into a space that's going to protect us more. There's no safe space in a big tornado, especially, but we can be safer by being in the right places in our structures.
Wasn't it an EF2 or EF3 that took out Fairfield, Illinois?
Yeah, I think it was a 3, if I recall correctly. That was the Rochelle and
Fairfield, right? We wiped out the Grubstakers restaurant south of our town here in New Milford, and between New Milford and Rochelle.
And here's the amazing thing about tornadoes. It's not just the area that's hit either. I just sat forward in my chair. I'm getting all jazzed up. This is my jam, right? It's not just the area that's hit. We were living at the time in McHenry County, and we lived north of Woodstock, like in that triangle between, for those who know McHenry County, Illinois, that triangle between Woodstock, McHenry, and Hebron. We were out in the country right there. 65 miles as the crow flies is what I figured out on the map the next day by pulling the arrow up the map on Google Maps. 65 miles from Grubstakers. I had in my yard the next day after Grubstakers got hit by that tornado, a 2005 Cisco receipt for Grubstakers in my yard, 65 miles away. So when the tornado hits an area and it picks that debris up, it gets it tens of thousands of feet into the sky, and we don't know where the 2x4 is going to land or where the roof of the garage from somebody's house is going to land, right? So it's not just being right in the tornado, it's also that the debris is flying out from that storm and landing somewhere. So even if you're just outside observing and you can see that you're not directly in the path of the tornado, you don't know that you're not going to get knocked in the head by somebody's debris.
Right. Isn't the rating 2 times every time you go up? So an EF4 is 2 times as strong as a 3, and a 5 is 2 times as strong as a 4, or something like that.
That's more of the mathematical thing is more of an earthquake, but the actual wind speeds, the spinning wind speeds is how you get the tornado speeds.
Well, the site I've got up now is the nypark.org site, which I'll put that in the chat here too. Tell us about this organization.
Yeah, so NYPARK is the Northwest Illinois Preparedness and Response Coalition, and it's a healthcare coalition. So helping for all of the healthcare community to be better prepared. Started as a hospital preparedness program years ago and expanded out to be inclusive of not just the hospital setting, but all of the healthcare provider types. And the Centers for Medicaid and Medicare Services, Medicare and Medicaid Services, I always get those backward. The CMS folks have 17 different types of healthcare providers that they consider to be part of the entire healthcare community. So NYPARK serves all of those provider types. It's a grant-funded organization. Mercy Health is the fiduciary for us, and they manage the oversight for our staff member that we have who runs the coalition for us. But so it's a volunteer-led, volunteer-based group. Everyone voluntarily comes to it. But all of these healthcare organizations, the 17 provider types who accept Medicare or Medicaid services, so they take Medicaid patients, nursing homes that accept Medicare payments for their people, they're all required by law to have emergency management programs, full comprehensive programs that include plans and assessments and exercises every single year. And so we come together as a group on a monthly basis, and then every quarter we have a big group meeting and we talk about what the issues are and how to be better prepared. And this year we're actually working on our chemical plan, which is what you're looking at right there, the Strategic National Stockpile ChemPack program. And we just did 2 exercises, 2 tabletops for the hospital setting specifically last week to talk about what are we going to do? How are we going to use it? How do we access it? Identifying whether or not phone numbers are still good, and if everything that's written in the plan is still effective and in place, and do we need additional resources? And there are a whole lot of resources that we know that we don't have enough of in a big incident. So where are we then going to access those, and how far out do we reach, and how long does it take them to get to us? We actually have a response team that went up into Wisconsin a couple of weeks ago for the tornado response that they had up there to support their operations. And of course, our healthcare systems are across the border. They don't see the state line as a stop in private industry. They've got facilities on both sides. So it's very easy for healthcare to move across the state. It's a little harder for our government partners to necessarily move state to state, because in emergency management, government follows under the National Emergency Management Assistance Compact. And so it's harder to do that neighbor to neighbor moving around, but our team can move very easily and go up and support and assist. So that's a really cool thing too. But so we're a 9-county area. We go from Boone County to the river, and then down, including Whiteside County. I think that's our farthest south county. But so 9 counties in the northwest part of the state. And like I said, we meet every month I actually help coordinate the allied providers. So the non-hospital settings, long-term care, developmentally disabled, intermediate care facilities, assisted living, but also the more outpatient service types of places. Dialysis centers are a highly critical medical function, and we need those places to really be ready to stand back up immediately, or be able to move their operations, what we call continuity of operations, move their operations if their physical plant is impacted, because those patients absolutely cannot go without their services. When you're on dialysis, you need to be dialyzed on your own schedule. So making sure that happens is really a key thing.
The life, it's not just about life saving, it's life continuing for folks like that, right? They rely on you talk about these if someone is those chem
pack,
the chem packs, if there's a situation where those are needed, I mean that's a scary thought. But again, it's if someone's been affected by a specific chemical, and I guess that's probably, is that one of the things that you guys discuss, is the likelihood of certain chemicals infecting large groups of people?
Not a likelihood necessarily so much. And part of the challenge with a regional planning group is that we have 9 counties. And our counties are very different. Winnebago County is very different from Lee County, right? We have very, very agricultural areas where organophosphates and anhydrous is used consistently through agriculture. And so, those areas have some slightly different threats and risks than the city of Rockford necessarily has. So at the same time that we're planning for that large 9-county area, each of the single individual counties are planning through their county emergency management offices. And then in the municipalities where they have, in Rockford specifically, we have a very strong fire department. We have a lot of folks in the fire department here who have done emergency management training and understand the planning concepts and move forward with that. So in the city, they've got their own planning going on, and then that all feeds into the overarching, the more regional plans. So we let them dial into their details, and then we look at the bigger picture. How do we move things to the areas that need them across the region? And of course, we have state partners as well. So when something happens that's big enough that we need to go outside of our own 9-county region, we need resources from somewhere else, we look to those folks to be able to bring that to bear for us as well.
Awesome. Good deal. Well, if somebody wants to plug into what you guys are doing, the link to that website is in the chat there, NIPARC.org, NIPARC.org, and check that out. Sign up for the website and the group there, and then you have an event for the group members coming up here next month. What's that all about?
Yeah, May 1st. So under the CMS emergency preparedness rule, so that's Center for Medicare Medicaid Services, they have requirements for all of those providers. And every single year, those providers are required to engage in a community-based exercise of some type. And we're doing our annual exercise for the non-hospital providers on May 1st at our quarterly full meeting. And so if people want to, if you're with a healthcare organization and you want to engage, you want to get to that meeting, you want to get to that exercise, go to the website, scroll just a little bit down below that picture. There's a become a member button. Get in that, and then we'll start emailing with you and get you engaged and let you know when the meeting's going to be. And hopefully we'll be able to get you there and help you be better prepared.
Awesome. Good deal. Is this one of those events where you like need actors to come and pretend like they're sick or they're dying?
Not this one, no. This one's just conversational. We might need those in the future, though. I know you're an actor, Greg. Are you interested in playing a role?
I'm not sure. It depends. But yeah, I've heard of them doing that, like at the airport for like a disaster preparedness there. Where we're going to be pretending that the plane crashed, and here's the people that are injured, and the healthcare workers have to figure out what's going on. With here, you're suffering from that. You broke this, and it's very interesting, but it's sensible. I mean, you really want to have people, whatever little bit of muscle memory they can produce is that, okay, if I'm in a situation now, high stress situation where something really terrible has happened, at least I've talked about it. At least I've simulated what this might be like, so I don't have to freak out. I can go and act on my knowledge and not on my emotions and such. So, before we let you go, I do want to mention that you are a part of Women's Space. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about your involvement with Women's Space.
Well, I volunteer a tiny little bit over there. I don't consider myself to be an artistic person, but I'm a planner, right? And they do events and they do other things. And they've got a fabulous property, a beautiful property where the outdoor group keeps the gardens in really good shape. And there's a labyrinth when you follow the path around. There's the labyrinth right there. There's just all kinds of events that are going on constantly over there. And there are classes and lunch and learns and book clubs and special events that are happening. And next year, 2025, is actually their 50th anniversary. So next year, it'll even be ratcheted up a little bit more because it'll all be kind of this golden year of 50 years of Dorothy Bach and Elaine Hirschenberg's vision for what happens. But another thing that I really like about Women's Space is that they don't just have their own programs. They're consistently engaged with other nonprofits in the community and working on other things. And most recently, they've been helping to get the Venezuelan immigrant families who have just been relocated here set up in households and get their households furnished for them because they came here with nothing and their stipend to live off of isn't going to go very far. And so they worked very closely with the RAI, the Rockford Area Immigration or Immigrants Group. It's a new nonprofit in the area to get those folks set up and help to welcome them to the community. So really doing good work in the community and having fun events that go on. And I'm actually serving as their chair for the 50th anniversary leadership council or leadership committee. I don't remember what we called ourselves, but anyway, so I'm helping to facilitate those meetings and keep things going. And because I'm a planner, get the plans in place for the new events or the fun events that we're reenacting and revisiting from the past as well.
Yeah, nice. Okay, good deal. Well, I really appreciate your time. I hope your May preparedness event goes well. And I'm sure at some point in the future, you'll be back to speak again to a Rockford Linked group because, that'll probably become an annual thing like at the beginning of the year for you, Diane,
Okay. I'm in. Yep. Since I started my business, I said I was going to do up to 3 pro bono preparedness talks about people being better prepared. We can't get there if we don't talk about it. It's kind of like everything else. We can't ever get there if we never talk about it. So I'm happy to do it, Greg. You let me know when you want me to come back.
Thanks so much for jumping on with us today. And we'll look forward to catching up with you again down the line.
Good. Thanks, Greg.
All right. There's her information there on the screen for you, the Logsdon Group. And we got the link in the chat for you. So you can click right on the link and go right to her webpage and learn more all about the Logsdon Group and emergency planning. I'm told he sleeps, but I'm not sure I believe them. Kevin Polke is the founder of KP Counseling, which is the largest counseling agency in Northern Illinois. He's also the executive director of Red Oak Counseling, which is the second largest counseling agency in the Milwaukee, Wisconsin region. Vice president of clinical and cultural development over at Refresh Mental Health. And he founded Four Corners Wellness. And probably what we're going to talk about the most today is SOS. Kevin founded and is the president of Shatter Our Silence. And I actually have a graphic here to bring him in on, if this will work. There we go. Look at that. We're going to fill up the screen with the Shatter Our Silence logo. Good morning to you, Kevin Polkey. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, good morning, Greg. Good morning, Tom.
Good morning, Kevin. Good to talk to you again.
Yeah, good seeing you guys.
Now, we're going to get into the SOS here in just a second, but are you a Rockford native? Did you grow up and go to high school and all the stuff here in Rockford?
Yep. Born at Swedish American Hospital, now UW Swedes, and for the first few years I was in Rockford City proper, and then we moved to McChesney Park, and then I graduated from Harlem High School, and then went to Rock Valley College. Yep.
All right, so you are an 815 guy.
And haven't gone anywhere. Even I tried to check out a couple places, but I chose to come back, and I'm grateful that I did.
Awesome. Husband, father, probably won't be too long, and you just might be a granddad like me.
Yep. I have my wife and I have been together we'll be married 30 years. Diane and I, she's a Rockfordian as well. And then we have 2 young adult children. My oldest is Caleb, and he's married. And then my daughter, Sierra, who you know very well because of all the theater that Sierra has done with your kids, as well as yourself. She's 25 and just got married just recently.
Yes. 2 exceptional human beings. I love. I don't know Caleb very well. I haven't spent much time with him, but been in a few shows with Sierra, and got to help her and her husband buy their home last year, which was really fun and really great to be. I love part of being a realtor and working with friends and family. I've discovered this about myself. I actually do treat most of my clients like I do my friends and family. I'm not really much different either way, because as I explained to people when I meet with them the first time, I'm really not a salesperson. I'm a consultant. You're going to hear me ask you questions, and you're going to give me the answers that you know how you feel about things. And I'm just going to tell you if I think that's feasible or not. I'm going to tell you what I would do if I was in your shoes, and we'll go from there. You can make your decision. So it was fun to look at houses with Sierra and her husband.
And that was one of the craziest times that I ever vicariously experienced through them, was that you guys were like having to make offers while you're going through the homes, and that was unheard of like when I've looked at homes, you contemplate it for days, weeks, or whatever, and then you make an offer, and that was a wild experience. And I don't know if it's still that way or not, but that was I really appreciate you being able to help them through that.
The truth be told, it's probably going to be that way for the next few years, because the inventory is still so low and there's still plenty of buyers. So we're in this weird stage where we kind of wonder where the exit is, where the next market shift truly is. And it's been a ride, but we got them in a house. They're fixing it up. They're doing their thing. So that's very cool.
Looks awesome now. Yeah, looks awesome.
So you you started your own counseling company. Did you do that straight out of college? What is kind of the timeline of your professional career?
Sure. So when I graduated from Illinois State in '90, I came back to Rockford and worked in juvenile corrections for about a year. And then from there, I ended up working at a psychiatric hospital here in town, Oakwood Hospital. Worked there until '94. But during that time period, I went back to school at University of Illinois to get my master's in social work, specialized in school social work, and that brought me back to Harlem, and worked in their special ed department, as well as had an opportunity to coach football and be their strength conditioning coach. In 96, I got a part-time opportunity to do some clinical work. And that's when I first started doing clinical work at night, when I was working during the day as a social worker. And then in 2001 is when I opened up KP Counseling. So KP has been going around since May of 2001. And it was just me hoping that it would be okay. And we'd be able to support Diane, and then the small kids, the 3 and 5, and now we have 3 locations in the Rockford area, 1 in Huntley, soon to be rebranding some an area down in Carbondale, a location in Carbondale, and 3 locations in the Chicagoland area.
Awesome. I got a feeling when you started this, you probably never even fathomed the idea of expanding into multiple locations. Obviously, mental health awareness and the needs for mental health professionals has increased exponentially these last 20 years. Am I hitting the right nail here with the hammer?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, when I first opened up KP, I was, from what I understand, I was the first non-prescriber, non-physician to open up what came to be a group practice. I was hoping, just that it would, not fail in the first year, like so many businesses unfortunately do. And but I was fortunate enough that I had some a good following, and because of the work that I had done at Harlem, a lot of people seeking out that idea. I think probably the main thing that we wanted to try to get a message across about breaking the stigma around receiving counseling, improving your mental health, was this idea that very seldom do we have someone coming in that we think has a mental illness. We just have ordinary people coming in who just are struggling with something. And so we just want to help someone wherever they're at to get to wherever they want to go. And that's really the mindset of just ordinary people just trying to help somebody with the obstacles that they have in their life.
Yeah. I think Tom and I can both agree, especially over these last 4 years, that any stigma over getting counseling or therapy of any type, that's pretty much out the window. It's a rare day to hear anybody, kind of give you the side eye about, ooh, this person's getting counseling or therapy from somebody. I haven't seen that in years.
Yeah. I think you're 100% right. It has changed so much in the last 20, 30 years, especially, that we would hear about it in other parts of the country. And now I think in our area, in the Midwest specifically, has caught up to that it's not, oh, you're going to counseling. It's more about, where are you going to counseling? Who's your therapist is more of the conversation, more so than, well, why are you going? And, that part, I think, has really, in the last 4 or 5 years, has really changed. I think a lot of that has to do with a lot of celebrities coming out and talking about it, a lot of other efforts that we've had in the community of trying to kind of maybe parallel that. My background is as a competitive athlete, and back in the early 80s, the average person didn't go to the gym, and now we have everybody has some experience with exercising, even if it's just walking the bike path, and now it's similar. We're moving in that direction regarding mental health as well.
Very true. Is there something that you can pinpoint in your past that kind of ignited your passion to get involved in counseling in the first place? Was there something that happened maybe in your teen years or in college, or something that you're like, I see myself helping people and helping counsel people through tough times in the future? Was there anything like that?
I think it kind of, when I think back about it, it probably goes back to when I was an athlete. And not only was it the coaches that I had in middle school and high school, but specifically when I was working at, this gym is now closed, but I was working out at Champions Gym in Rockford, or at that time in McChesney Park. And the guys that were 5-10 years older, they brought me under their wing. They mentored me, they guided me, and that had a lot to do with the success that I had, winning some teenage competitions. And they were so generous with, maybe there was a lot of do as I say, don't do as I do type stuff, but that I think was the beginning of it. And then, of course, back in the early 80s, if you were a bodybuilder, then, you either were bouncing in bars, which I did, or you were training people because there wasn't training certificates at that time. There wasn't that organization. And I think that was the beginning of it. I could show someone how to lift weights in the first few weeks, but they continue to want me to help them with their workouts because of either wanting motivation, inspiration, accountability. And I think that was the first taste of this idea of maybe I can help people.
Nice.
So, Kevin, we all have somebody in our lives, in our past, maybe somebody we live with, maybe it's a best friend or something like that. We all need help from time to time. And sometimes you're too close. Yep. What is your best advice for getting them to seek help that they need, and maybe they know they need, but they're not really willing to admit it? What's a good approach to say, hey, why don't you talk to this guy, KP Counseling, or somewhere? Yeah. What would you say to them?
Well, Tom, I think the first part would be being able to, because of the relationship that you have with that individual, that you're noticing something's going on, is maybe just as, sharing with them what you're observing, not from a judgmental standpoint, but you're seeing them, seeing them not where they were 6 weeks ago, or something's different. And, as much as you're sharing your observation, you can also be asking, Tom, what's going on? You don't seem to be as energetic as normal. So you're coming at it from a perspective of caring, but also curiosity, which then allows people, if nothing else, it allows them to feel hopefully seen and then heard. And then at some point, they may go, what, I need to do something. And then we can go, okay, I know of this person who went and got help here, or I know of this organization over here. I've heard about this. Let's take a look at it. Or, I saw when, in my case, I saw Kevin post something on Facebook about this. So let's see what his website looks like. So that may be a way of kind of bridging that gap, because when we're in that most vulnerable spot, when we have some kind of thing going on, or at least for me, I have all this noise in my head that tells me, don't expose yourself anymore. There's shame that's tied to the secrets, because I feel like there's something wrong with me, even if other people don't think it that way. They just see something that is not what my normal is. And that shame has a tendency for me to want to go inward and not be vulnerable. That's why we might need some assistance to make that call or look at the website or whatever it is.
Well, there's a trust factor involved. Somebody's not going to open up to you if they don't trust you. And then I think in my opinion, I think there's another tier where it's, I have this pride where I don't want you to see my vulnerable side. So it's almost a double whammy. And I had this, I share this because I had this with my brother, who was in serious need of help for most of his life. He found Jesus 10 years before he passed away. He became a good man, a decent human being, but he still needed counseling. And I still could never really help him because he didn't seem to want that kind of help. And that was the crux of my question. I'm just looking for advice if I ever run into something like that again, how to break through those walls. And I know it's tough. It's difficult.
Well, I think, Tom, one, there's a great lead in right there, that what you just shared about with your brother, right? And maybe, if a situation came like that again, it could be even, go back and refer into this conversation, or if you've ever, or, someone that's close to you experienced the benefits of some type of personal growth or development or formalized counseling, that almost is always the strongest testimony. It's almost always the strongest suggestion, is that this is what I did and this is how it helped me. It may or may not help you that way, but you're showing them a pathway. You're also that's how you're breaking the stigma, because you're now talking about something that sometimes it's the hardest thing to talk about, even though it's definitely more acceptable today. When we're in that vulnerable spot, when we're hurting, it is the last thing we want to do is expose, that wound or that thing that's causing us that pain.
Well, it's really interesting. You're an athlete. I'm an athlete. Greg, I don't know if you were an athlete. I played sports most of my life, and sports is always that real good doorway, that real good opening. And I've seen commercials lately where a couple of gals are talking, and they're both in the Army. They former Army, and they're at a physical fitness place, whatever. And they started talking, and that broke the conversation, that broke the barrier. And they started talking about better health or something along those lines. Yep. And I thought that was kind of good. They were using that as the inroad. So kind of along those lines, I think that's what you're suggesting.
We talk about this, with Shatter Our Silence and other aspects of it, is that, art, different forms of art and different forms of sport, they are a metaphor for life. I was fortunate enough to win a national championship when I was a teenager, Teenage Mr. USA. What I learned on the way to that day was much more valuable for me going into the future than the day that I won the show or the pieces of plastic trophies that are underneath my basement stairs. I mean, those were the lessons that I then needed to use to become a counselor, to reinvent myself from an athlete to, going into another facet of my life. And being able to see, those athletes on stage or 4 years ago, Simone Biles, being able to have the courage for her to share what she shared with the world. And now she's coming back, and now she's even going to be a stronger testimony for that part of her story. And so I think all those things are opportunities to give other people permission to do the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think where I found myself in these last few years, when I'm encountering people who you can tell are struggling with something, I know the self-talk demons I deal with myself and how bad they can be to me and how nasty. And I had a good father. I had good parents that actually talked me up and treated me well. And I think, well, these poor folks who didn't have that, I can't imagine what the demons are screaming in their ears.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's just horrible. I think Tom hit on an important point, though, that a lot of times for people to get help, they need to find that stranger, that someone that's not too close to the situation. Do you find that, Kevin, is it more because do you feel more vulnerable talking to a professional that you don't know very well, because you have to go deep and actually explain things to them because they don't know you personally? Is that kind of where that path goes?
Well, I think it's a combination of things, right? Number one, part of as a licensed social worker, licensed counselors, we have a code of ethics that says that we are not to work with in a professional therapeutic sense with someone that isn't within our family or in our closest friend circle. And the reason why, and I've come to see this and know this for myself, is that I'm too close. It's called what we refer to as countertransference. There is going to be things that I may not be able to be completely objective about when I'm working with someone if I have too much invested in the outcome. And it's similar, the difference between, me being able to help my son or daughter out when a standpoint of coaching them regarding an activity versus an outside coach coming in and being able to show. They're going to be different with that outside coach versus myself. They're going to have a different level of rapport with that coach. Now, it's not that they don't trust me. It's not that they don't believe what I have to say, but something happens when we're we're in that space where we have to have the courage to be vulnerable to someone else. We see that person having a level of experience and expertise, and that then allows then that coach or that counselor to then work with them and see them from a perspective and ask questions that a family member or close friend would already know, and we'd be patronizing if we then ask them. So it's a combination of a handful of different things that I think, and when we're able to match up with someone that is a good fit for us, then there's just something that happens. It's like we talk about as athletes, it ends up being like this flow or this runner's high, and some, from a spiritual standpoint, that's when I believe then God is in that space, and then God is working through the coach or the therapist and helping the person go where they need to go.
Yeah. We're all a little bit different in that some of us need that coach that has already been there, says, I know you've been to the mountaintop, so you're going to tell me how to get there. Some need the coach or counselor that has worked with those people that have been there, not necessarily maybe themselves have been there, but they've worked with others. They need some proof. There's a lot of dynamics involved. We could trace down a whole lot of different bunny trails, but instead of doing that, let's focus as we wrap up here on Shatter Our Silence. What caused you to start SOS, and what are your goals here for the region when it comes to shatteroursilence.org? Sure.
So unfortunately, it was not something that I intentionally went into doing. It started in 2012. I got a phone call that someone, a sophomore high school at Rockford Christian, had died from suicide, and I helped out with a postvention with the students and the staff. And then in 2014, I got a call that another individual from the same graduating class of 100 died from Rockford Christian. And then in October of 2015, got another call that the third of 100 from the class of 2014 at Rockford Christian died. My son happened to be also in that graduating class. And that's when I recognized I needed to do something more than just providing counseling for the community. Didn't know for sure what that was. I reached out to a handful of individuals, and we thought we were just going to do an awareness night at Rockford University. And we had all the seats filled. It was an awesome experience and I partnered with some a marketing company called Thinker Venture, and we came up with a concept of how we need to shatter all of our fears, stigma, all of our silence around the factors that lead to young adult suicide. From that date in 2016, I got a bunch of phone calls to go to schools, and then we turned it into a nonprofit. So we've been in existence since the spring of 2016. We've now reached over 25,000 high school students. Our main campaign is to be able to raise awareness of the factors that lead to young adult suicide, and then educate young adults, their significant others, and the professionals that work with them. Earlier this week, I was in Florida working, presenting to an organization called Uncommon Farms. They are farm families that have multi-generational businesses, and they are, moving the initiative of rural mental health. I've had the opportunity to work with the Air Force in St. Edwards Air Force Base, and work with the Navy in Florida, as well as in the state line area, working with school districts, nonprofits, and businesses of how we can shatter our silence and become educated about what we can do, so we don't have to go to another, specifically young adult funeral as a result of suicide, or anybody's funeral as a result of suicide.
Yeah. That is amazing stuff. You can't really quantify it, I don't think, the amount of lives you've saved, spared, touched. But my hat is off to you and what you do, and all of your colleagues. Of course, can't take my hat off. My headsets are on. It wouldn't work, but yeah, you get the point. But thank you so much. I mean, this is amazing. I love the work you do, and I think it's so very, very important. Especially, I have 3 kids, 37. I know I don't look that old. Had them when I was 10. Hey, No, 37, 33, almost 34, and then 31. And they've not been without their issues. But, good friends, good counseling, for lack of a better term, because I don't know if they've ever gone into the actual counseling part of it, but just, getting help when needed. And that is the key. Get help when needed. And my kids aren't going to come to me and say, hey, Dad, I'm really struggling with this. They've found other ways, but I know they've had their struggles. And it's all part of the big picture. The bottom line is get help when needed. And I think you guys are doing an amazing job.
Thank you, Tom.
So when it comes to Shatter Our Silence and your SOS organization, it is a not-for-profit. So if people want to help support what you're doing, there's ways to do that. And is there a need beyond financial? Do you look for volunteers for any sort of things or events or anything coming up? How can people help and get involved?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, obviously, financial donations always help. The goal is for us to never say no to someone who wants us to, come and share the content that we developed, the message that we have regarding that. The whole idea is how can we bring light into the darkness, and that darkness, unfortunately, is where sometimes individuals feel that maybe life isn't worth living. We all are somewhere on that continuum. So obviously financial donations is part of it, and that you can contribute at the website as a way of doing that. Probably the biggest thing, I mean, outside of that, but even bigger, I think, is just being able to share, what we're talking about today, being able to tell other people about, well, we heard about this SOS, let's go check that out, or forwarding someone, because it's really about sharing the message about that there is light no matter how dark it gets. And SOS is just one organization that's trying to make a difference in that. And so really sharing that message is probably the biggest thing that people can do. But volunteering when we have events, when I'm myself or some of the other individuals that help out, when we're either in a community event, we're speaking somewhere, teaching somewhere, being able to come to that, supporting it, sharing it on social media, all those are ways of definitely helping. And then when we have our events, such as our annual event that we have, our fundraising dinner in September, Suicide Awareness Month, being able to be there and share time and stories with like-minded individuals, those are all ways of being able to help out.
Awesome. Well, check out the website. If you have any questions, Kevin would love to connect with you there. And I think it's been awesome that you've had time to carve out for us this morning to share what you're doing with Shatter Our Silence and KP Counseling. And reach out, shatteroursilence.org, if anybody has any questions. I know Kevin would love to connect with you and your loved ones, your friends that might be going through something that needs a little help in the right direction.
I probably the biggest thing I want to send off is that we're all at different times in our life are going to experience darker days. And the idea of education and awareness and being available for other people, we never know we never know when we may be a light for someone in the darkness. So there's always opportunities, to smile, open up a door, to be able to see someone. You never know where someone's at. So I just really invite people to keep that in mind. I know there's a lot of stuff going on in our own lives and our own heads, but you never know how you're going to impact someone else. So we all have an opportunity to be a light in someone's darkness.
Awesome. Good deal. Thanks for the advice, Kevin. And we'll keep in touch and hopefully connect again before your event in September. Okay.
Sounds good. Thank you, guys.
All right. There you go. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Who in the world Ron Kluwer is? Fill us in on yourself. Where'd you grow up? Where'd you go to high school? What's your background?
So I am not originally from Rockford, born and raised the first part of my childhood in South Chicago, and then moved to central Wisconsin, where I finished out elementary school in a small little town called Coloma, and it was Coloma Grade School. We were so small, we had shared classes, so like 5 and 6, 7 and 8. Then I graduated from Westfield High School in 1984, Westfield, Wisconsin. Go Pioneers. And then I wound up moving out to California for a bit and moved here in the late 80s.
So you grew up not far from the Wisconsin Dells.
I grew up not far from the Wisconsin Dells, so it's less than an hour.
Yeah, yeah.
So are you I have to ask, are you conflicted as to whether you're a Bear fan or a Packer
I'm not
fan?
conflicted at all.
And what
I
are
am
you?
neither.
Aw. A Cowboy fan, please.
Actually, I am more a soccer fan than I am an American.
Okay, all right, that's cool.
Okay.
That is cool. I like soccer. My kids all played soccer in high school and in college, and I did my share of running along the sidelines with the yellow, with the flag thing. Sideline marker, sideline judge is what I was. So.
Those fun sideline markers. Yeah, get your own workout.
Yeah.
So Gorman and Company, for those who don't know what Gorman and Company is all about, this is not new. Gorman and Company's been around for a while.
We actually that's where I was last night. We were celebrating our 40th anniversary. So started in 1984, the year I graduated high school.
Okay. And how did you find yourself involved with them? What was your career arc to get there?
Sure. So years back, I served as the CEO of the Rockford Housing Authority. But just prior to that role, I was hired at RHA to be the director of real estate development. And at that time, the Housing Authority had done no real estate development in 30 plus years. And we had, an aging portfolio that really wasn't in a place where folks should either A, live in it and have a healthy place to live, or B, contribute positively to the neighborhood. So I was brought in to redevelop that portfolio. We wound up doing a national RFP for a real estate developer, and Gorman happened to be one of multiple respondents. And after a lot of review, we went up to Wisconsin. We looked at their assets, and they had done amazing work to either build or redevelop former public housing or just straight affordable housing. And so we chose Gorman as our partner. And I worked with Gorman from 2010 to 2017 when I left the Housing Authority. I took 2 years off and went to an organization called the Alliance for Strong Families and Communities, which was headquartered in Washington, D.C. And I worked in the D.C. office and the Milwaukee office, where we had our second office, which was our operations center. And then was there for 2 years and came back into housing. I had to get back into housing because it runs through my blood. And I joined the Gorman team at that time in 2019.
Okay. So you were 2019. That was prior or just when Embassy Suite Project? That was after they had already started.
To a close. So actually, because of the work Gorman did here on a couple housing developments and the work they had done in Milwaukee and Kenosha on 2 hotels there. There are some communities Gorman chooses to make deeper investments in, and Rockford was one of them. And then Mayor Larry Morrissey asked, our interest, and this was a result really of a national search again by a group called the Friends of ZEOC. And so they did an RFP for a developer. Again, multiple respondents. We have this niche in historic adaptive reuse, and it wound up that Gorman was chosen for that. And we had built the Embassy Suites, or renovated, what was the former Amrock building, into the Embassy Suites, and it's just been an amazing project. So when I was at RHA, we actually did a call for artists on behalf of Gorman to see how we may engage local artists in the renovation of the building. And if you go into, you'll see Jeremy from Mainframe has the amazing wood, repurposed wood art installation behind the reception desk, which is actually a map of our downtown. If you go up on the roof, you'll see the fire pits are done by a local artist named Tim Hawley, and then there's some other local artists as well who've contributed their work, or we purchased their work for the hotel. So I was involved that way, but I came in 2019 at the tail end of the Embassy Suites project, which is really a 12-year project from start to finish. By the time we were done, we were opening just in time for the COVID shutdown.
Yeah, right.
So our grand opening was supposed to be April 1st, and on March 17th, they shut down hotels, and you couldn't stay in a hotel.
And in spite of that happening, I think it's pretty fair to say, and I'm not just blowing smoke because you're on this podcast with us, I think it's pretty safe to say the Embassy Suites project has been way over anyone's expectations. It's just been a huge success.
Yeah, I was reminded last night as we were celebrating our 40th and spending time with my colleagues that 2 years ago, for the first time, Embassy hit the leading Embassy Suites in the entire nation.
Oh, wow.
We've been in multiple award categories, and we've even been on the international list. So yes, it is an amazing place. I'm biased, of course, but you can't tell me somebody would go up and sit on that rooftop and look out over our city and believe that it's a much different place, and we are an incredible place to live.
Go ahead, Greg. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Ron.
Well, that's a great story. There were naysayers when the whole project first started. I was definitely not one of them. How many of those naysayers have come forward and said, wow, we were wrong. Great job. Because it is a great job. That building is unbelievable.
It is incredible. And thank you. So I think that there have been several, but probably the most meaningful. And I want to give a shout out to her, because it takes really integrity to come forward and say what this individual said. So former Alderwoman Vanita Hervey, when she was up giving her 3-minute speech about advancing Barbara Coleman, she got up and said, I voted no. I was against. I didn't think it should happen, and I was wrong, and it is incredible. And that's the type of that shows integrity on an individual's part. And I've always had respect for her, even though we've often been on wrong sides of issues, or different sides of issues, I should say. But for somebody to get up in a public forum like that and admit it was incredible. But that's the type of belief that was out there at the time, right? It's not going to work. It's going to fail. Why would we do this? Why would we invest in our downtown? And you look now at the map of additional investments that are triggered when somebody is, either crazy enough, which Gary Gorman was, but also genius enough at the same time to believe in a vision that an old, vacant 13-story industrial building could become an award-winning hotel, and then put their money after it, right, and make it happen. It causes other people to say, well, geez, instead of, they're willing to do an $87.5 million investment, I'll invest $2 million in this property, or $12 million in that property. And the amount of West Side investment it has triggered has been incredible.
Yeah.
That is so
And
cool.
To see that an old building like that become a hotel, and now the situation that we find ourselves in, not just in Rockford, but all across the country, with this lack of inventory, lack of housing. You hear anywhere from estimates of like 1.7 to 13 some million units short of current housing demand. It's pretty. I think the numbers support at least about a 4 to 5 million unit shortfall just in the last like 15 years.
Yeah.
Is renovating buildings like the old Barbara Coleman buildings into some sort of residential type spaces, is that going to make enough of a dent that people might get a little bit excited about it?
I think yes, first of all, but it's also, the Barbara Coleman project is going to be an amazing project. It is, however, the only vehicle, the historic tax credit in Rockford, that is making investments possible for housing. And so it is going to make a dent, but it is only one of the few ways we're able to make a dent.
It's a dent. Yeah, it's not the whole thing for sure.
Right. But even, if you look at any of the construction in Rockford over the last, 5 to 10 years, thank God for Justin Fern and Urban Equities, who's got a, historic adaptive reuse model, has been able to leverage the River's Edge state tax credits for historic, as well as the federal historic tax credits, because if there wasn't somebody savvy enough to utilize those credits, then there really wouldn't be anything happening in Rockford for home construction. So there have been hundreds of units that have been added to the city's inventory, and they're only through the historic adaptive reuse, because that tool actually makes economic sense. Without it, you're seeing no real new construction, although Justin did do the one building there just on South Main north of the embassy. But that really is an anomaly, and you don't really see those. It was 30 units, not 300 units or 3,000 units, which we're actually locally, arguably 5,000 plus units behind in inventory, and it all depends on what stratus of household you're looking at, whether it's low income households or high income households, which most wouldn't recognize. But we have a significant shortfall of housing for those individuals who are able and willing to spend $400,000 or more on a house. We don't have the inventory there either.
No. The looks on people's faces when I tell them we could build 1,000 houses today and they'd all be sold and moved into in a month,
Yep.
Because we have that kind of demand. And they're like, here in Rockford? Yeah, here in Rockford, all across the country too. But mid-sized cities like Rockford across the country sometimes get overlooked in a lot of this stuff. But my goodness, when you take a look at cost of living and all the other aspects that have come into where people are comfortable living and what they want, we've got it here in Rockford. We just need to shine a light on a little bit better.
You got to flaunt it a little more.
Yeah. And I think repurposing old buildings. I know Gary Anderson, I heard him give a talk about a lot of these old buildings and his great frustration, how many of them have already been torn down that could have been repurposed into useful, maybe even residential buildings. Let's not let any more of them go. And he named a whole bunch of different buildings around the city that he would love to see repurposed. He said, now, all right, we've got Embassy Suites now. We can see that this is viable. This works. The project now on the river there, the whole Barbara Coleman project, how long are you thinking this is going to take before there's actually people doing commerce and living in that space?
I think we've heard in the media they've started phase one, right, and moving forward. Construction on phase one, my understanding is likely a 24-month window, and so that could could be 2 years from now. We'll see people living in there.
Wow.
But one of the challenges, regardless of all the stuff going on in the media, is we just don't have a workforce either to build it, right? And so that's the other piece. We have a housing shortage and we have a labor shortage, and so trying to find an appropriate workforce that's going to be able to complete that on time, I know, is a challenge for every developer. We have a project coming up, and you really have to beat the streets, so to speak, to get people signed up and contracted to do the work, not because they don't want to, but because there's so much work elsewhere and in our region for just a small amount of workforce, and so we also need to increase that workforce.
Is there, are you hearing anything? This might be a question for someone completely different. I don't know, but I'm thinking internships and apprenticeships for electrical and plumbing and construction and all that sort of stuff. Where, hey, you wanna get out of high school and get schooling while being paid. There's got to be opportunities out there, and we need to start shining a light on those places, those opportunities too.
Oh, absolutely. I think RPS actually, as part of their career college and career academies, has done a great deal more over the last several years in the trade space. Right, for a long time, there was this push that everybody had to go off to college and become a doctor, or a lawyer, or a scientist of some sort or something. not recognizing the great living that a tradesman can make as an electrician or a carpenter or whatever. And it's really what our community was founded on, is these types of amazing careers. And so it was good to see RPS go back in that direction. Rock Valley, I know, has a relationship with RPS around this. Habitat for Humanity uses high school students to build homes. And so, yes, that's there. Youth Build is out there doing work as well, but we need to put those all on steroids.
Yeah.
And get a lot more people in the workforce.
Good news. It's happening at Harlem High School. They're building on there, and they're going to be building the frames for houses that Habitat for Humanity will be building.
Yep.
And that'll be very exciting. Well, is there anything else that you'd like to shine a spotlight on today? We could go on all kinds. I told Tom earlier, I need to have you and I on and maybe a couple other folks to just have like an hour and a half, just open forum on real estate related issues around Rockford sometime. It would be a very informative, I think, for people to plug into that and see what opportunities are currently there and what opportunities should be there that we should be, trying to find solutions for. But for the purpose of this today, is there anything we didn't ask you about that you'd like to let us know before we let you go?
I really think we need to have this broader conversation about real estate. And I'd love to do that. When we talk about affordability as an example, locally, decision makers and people in positions of power who could help us create inventory legitimately fear when somebody says the words affordable housing. And I've been in enough of these conversations and circles that we hear people say, we don't want that. And what they're
affordable, and they think disposable, and that's not
right. Exactly.
It's
like, no, we need to have high quality housing that's healthy for people to live in. It needs to be affordable to folks across all different income spectrums. And so it often gets lost in this discussion of describe what is affordable. We don't have a way to do that. And actually, we do. It just means that you're not going to spend more than 30% of your income on household expenses, whether you're a homeowner or an apartment renter. And because of this lack of inventory and the increase in housing prices and even rent prices, one can look at that as a homeowner and say, this isn't a rock star market, right? My home is worth so much more than I paid for it, but sell it and try to buy another one. And it's a challenge because there's no inventory. But on the other side, what we're seeing is more than half of our city is what's called housing burdened, meaning they're spending more than 30% of their income, and significant folks are spending more than 50%. And so that becomes a challenge as well. And so creating inventory is important to bringing that, the number of folks who are housing burdened down, both on the for sale and the for rent side, because that's what's going to make our stable neighborhoods. So I would love to talk about that and what we might do. We've got to change our model here. Land use restrictions are keeping us from creating inventory. And we've got 7,000 to 10,000 jobs coming to the Rockford area in the next 5 years. If we don't have places for these folks to live, they're going to live somewhere else, and we're going to miss out on an opportunity to grow our community.
Yeah, that's a good point. I was, the National Zoning Atlas. Were you the one that turned me onto that?
Yeah, we were talking about it. Yep.
That the National Zoning Atlas is one of these hopeful partial solutions to our situation, and I don't know if they've gotten how much they've done in the Midwest yet, but this effort to let people know, hey, here's the zoning issues that your community is dealing with and why builders are choosing not to build in your area. What are we going to do about it? And there's the question, Ron, what are we going to do about it?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, so Midwest Chicago's actually done some amazing work around allowing accessory dwelling units, allowing duplexes to be built on single family lots. Even, there are communities that are going with up to 6 families on a single family lot. And part of that goes back to those land use regulations, right? Where even here in our city in 2007, 2008, we adopted a new zoning ordinance that increased the minimum lot sizes. So you really can put a 4 to 6 family on a single family lot that is, from the newer regulations, if you will. But try to do that in a single family neighborhood, and I think neighbors are going to go up in arms. But I live in Edgewater, and I've got neighbors down the block living in 4 families and 6 families, and they've lived together this way for decades, and it works. But we've become so fixated on single family that that's the means. And so with our zoning regulations, we've increased the costs of building single family alone. And so being able to get some low density multifamily would be, I think, important. Changing our regulations to allow that, changing our regulations that take away those minimum lot sizes, which are really excessive, and allow us to get back to, again, Edgewater, all these historic neighborhoods west of the river and south of the city are built on small lots and small homes. Even on the east side, you look at the area around Edgebrook; those are small lots, small homes, and they were built that way for a reason, because there needed to be starter homes. Mm-hmm. So we don't really build starter homes anymore. We just build the big ones, right? And those aren't the inventory we need in bulk or in mass.
Right. Yeah, the starter home new construction market is non-existent, if not like 1%, maybe.
Right.
It's crazy low.
Well, in most cases, it's illegal to build them under our current zoning code.
That's and something's got to change. I know. I think we have some advocates, at least in local government, that are seeing the need for that now and realizing that things have to be done. So, not to say who to vote for, but voting matters.
It absolutely does.
Ask people who are running for office what they think about the housing situation and the lack of inventory and zoning laws, because some people running for office might be thinking about it, but they might not be thinking about it. So bring it up. Let them know that it's on your mind. I know it's on mine. I don't know what the solution is, other than to maybe tweak some of these zoning laws. And who was it this week was telling me that, or you were telling me when we were chatting earlier this week, it used to be about $17,000 right up front for a builder requirements to build a new house. Now it's up to like 28,000 just on these required things that the builder can't get around.
Yeah, when I was with William Charles years back, and the city was looking at updating its zoning ordinance, and at the time I understood why. Like, we were building a lot of really cheap and not attractive looking housing, and it wasn't what we needed to do, right? And so affordable, as you said, isn't disposable, and so there was concerns about that. So there was a big shift, though, that increased minimum lot sizes, that increased, the facade limitations for brick and windows and all these other things. And back at that time, we did an analysis and sent a memo off to the city, which I have on my Substack posts. But it showed the math that you're creating an extra expense of $17,000 per household, a single family house, just to accommodate these new land use regulations. And we did the math again here about 2 months ago. It's $28,000 in today's numbers, and I think that's why we are not seeing homes being built in Rockford. If you look at the permit trends, Habitat is our biggest developer in the city of Rockford.
Do you have a link somewhere to your Substack that I can copy and paste?
It's just substack.com and Ron Kluwer, but I'm happy to send it to you, Greg. I actually was working on my article this morning for today. I get conflicted on what way do I want to go sometimes, because there's so many stories to write.
Right.
Actually, I'm focused. I'm going to stay focused on the connection between health and housing. And while I'll continue to beat the drum about the need for inventory and how do we improve our land use regulations, not doing that, when you look in the city of Rockford, in the last article I posted, which actually was just about 2.5 weeks ago, the connection between poor quality housing. So this is old housing that's becoming blighted and not really being renovated. And illness, so things like asthma and even mental health, are tracked back to the quality of the house an individual lives in. And so, there are so many variables in a home that can either help you live a healthy life or unfortunately contribute to high medical costs and create more problems. And we were in a meeting, a group of us, last week, and this is an initiative that's going to be coming out here in the next several months. So I'll refrain from saying what it is yet because it's another organization. I don't want to burst their bubble. But we were looking at this map that they created, a heat map, and the heat map was identifying those neighborhoods in the city of Rockford that are neighborhoods of success, right? Which most of them are on the northeast side. And I say most because there are also neighborhoods of challenge on the northeast side. And so it was neighborhoods of success, neighborhood of challenge, and neighborhoods of significant challenges. And so, significant challenges and challenges were identified as purple and teal green, respectively. When you looked at the map of the city and you saw 70+% of our neighborhoods fell into those two categories, that's a challenge. And how do we continue to keep our neighborhoods vibrant and great places to live and work and have fun? It all goes around the value of housing, right? And so not only do we need to improve inventory, but we need to improve the quality of the inventory we have. So the county health rankings and roadmaps released this week, 2024 health numbers and rankings for counties. And when you look at Winnebago County, last year we were in the upper 90s for health outcomes out of 102 counties. And so, we would rather be towards the number one for health outcomes, but we're at the bottom. And when you look at the contributing factors, a lot of it is the quality of our housing in many of our neighborhoods. So that's what I'm going to write about this week in the connection to the rankings.
And some of that can be, it sounds so immense and it sounds like such a huge challenge. And some of this stuff could be solved is simply, and this, I'm using the word simply, but track me here. We're simply solving some of these food desert areas where we need a good grocery store near that neighborhood. Or, there are a dozen houses that, they're beyond repair. They just need to be leveled and restarted, build anew. And having that done in a few different neighborhoods here and there could be the spark that rejuvenates the neighborhood.
Absolutely. And I think, that what you just mentioned, the access to food and then the access to healthcare and the access to quality education all falls under this umbrella of the social determinants of health, which, I wish they were called the social determinants of life, because then housing folks and economic development folks would pay attention to them. But those are the things that create the conditions for which people can live successful lives. And so the housing is the foundational piece to it. But if it's in a neighborhood that lacks all of those other things, it's far more difficult for that family to be successful.
Yeah, I think we're pretty blessed and lucky here in Rockford that the healthcare part of it is pretty much taken care of for the most part. So that's the good news. But yeah, we've got some food deserts out there and we got some blighted neighborhoods. Let's talk further about maybe setting up a special podcast edition, maybe some weekday when we can get some of our other local real estate related compadres on a podcast and spend an hour or two just going over this stuff. Ron, appreciate your time. We're going to let you go and enjoy writing your article.
I will. You guys have a great weekend.
All right. Thank you, Ron.
Thank you.
Ron Clure, he's the Illinois market president at Gorman and Company,